in Minnesota, they have a term, Minnesota nice, being that people in Minnesota are viewed as being extremely nice and courteous. And the implication really is that people in Minnesota are nicer than people in other parts of the country. For instance, people here in Boston, and that's rubbish. We're very nice here in Boston, just nice in a different way, you know? We're the type of people that will tell you the truth, even if it's not right. We'll take the time to tell you when you're doing something wrong, because we're Boston nice. And
what, do you think you're better than me?
So in this game, I'm going to tell you 3 things which would seem completely outlandish in any other part of the country, but here in Boston, you hear and you say, makes sense. And 2 of them will be true. 1 of them will be a lie, and it's going to be the panel's job to discuss and decide which of the 3 options is, in fact, the lie. Ready to go? Our first round is colonial history. So tell me which one of these is not true. Option 1, street voting. To celebrate the commitment of a local customs official to his work enforcing anti-smuggling tariffs, the people of Boston volunteered to assist him in bringing his personal leisure boat out of Boston Harbor for the winter and even dried the ship off for him with fire. Option 2, free booze. Following a particularly lively town meeting, a local tavern popular with the townspeople ran out of ale, threatening to cause a riot. Men associated with the Sons of Liberty calmed the crowd by acquiring 4 pipes of Madeira wine and 10 casks of ale from a Boston coffee house, a popular tavern with gentlemen of the town, and didn't even bother asking or paying. And option 3, double tarring. Hearing news that the people of Portsmouth, New Hampshire had tarred and feathered a man with his clothes on, thus sort of defeating the purpose of tarring and feathering him, the good people of Boston took it upon themselves to tar and feather the same man again, this time without any clothes. So which of these 3 options do you think is the lie? Is it number 1, street voting, number 2, free booze, or number 3, double tarring?
I think it's number 2. My reason for this guess is that burning boats, dragging boats on shore and burning them happened in all sorts of places, and I am almost positive happened on Boston Common. And option 3, the tarring and feathering, I think that's a reference to John Malcolm, who was tarred and feathered in Boston in 1774 on the basis, and this comes up in Alfred Young's The Shoemaker and the Tea Party, because it was provoked by the diminutive George Robert XII's use. John Malcolm had the distinction of being hated in lots of colonies, because I think he was involved in the North Carolina business with William Tryon as well.
Well, I don't know. Getting tarred and feathered once is uncomfortable. Getting tarred and feathered twice is very uncomfortable. So I'm not certain. It would seem to me that the tarring and feathering twice is probably fairly extraordinary, even for John Malcolm. So I kind of think that tarring and feathering twice may be an exaggeration by 2.
Was Malcolm the one who brought like balls of his skin, like rolled with
yes,
copper, like
yes,
to show them,
yes,
you know, to show how much he had suffered on behalf of the king's service?
Yes,
well,
that was
I was going to say there's a wonderful recipe for those of you who might be interested in reenactments of tarring and feathering in Kenneth Roberts' Northwest Passage. And so it's really quite delightful how they stir the tar, heat the tar. One of the difficulties was finding enough feathers, because particularly in the wintertime, they're a little scarce. So finding feathers was always a challenge. Finding the tar, that wasn't so bad, but finding the feathers, they really had to go and hunt for those geese.
Well, Bill, are you leaning towards number 2?
My guess was 2, because I don't remember a coffee house being deprived of its liquor, right? Private homes, yes, right? Like Hutchinson, they drank all his wine, but I don't remember that happening to a coffee house in Boston.
So what do you think? Can you come to an agreement on this, or?
I don't know. I think Ben knows this period better than I do, but
I haven't read Conroy's book in a while. And, I'm just throwing citations all over the place where people read all the good books about Massachusetts and Boston.
Sounds like your memory's pretty good on this, though, Ben.
All right, but my guess is two. I really do think that that Malcolm was tarred and feathered twice.
I guess I'll go with Ben, but I think my fingers are crossed.
I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
Chernoh?
Oh, no, don't ever admit to that. Good heavens.
You are correct. Yes, number 2 is the
Oh.
false one.
Poor John Malcolm, tarred and feathered twice.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have any skin left.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you were saying he took the skin that came off of him with the tar, and he
yes,
brought
right,
it to the
right.
King of England and presented it to him and asked to be the commander of the army in the American Revolution. But the king's response was, "I'm going to go with someone who's got skin." That's
Well, you
that's not true.
have to admit though, John Malcolm put some skin in the game.
Absolutely. So round 2 is historical head trauma. So option 1, going clubbing. In 1769, Patriot leader James Otis was beaten over the head by a customs officer in a local tavern. This apparently started a cool new trend because just down the road in 1771, a man named Lendell Pitts was arrested for hitting a man named John Gray in the head with a club in a similar fashion after Gray played a prank on him in front of his friends at a tavern. And I don't know what kind of prank it was, if it was a whoopee cushion or a rubber spider, but it's a pretty harsh reaction. Option 2, Irish hello. Just after World War II, a boxer named Punchy walked into a bar called O'Keefe's and beat another boxer named Sully over the head with a lead pipe, splitting his scalp open and leaving his skull visible. After Punchy left, Sully, the guy with the skull, came to, ran into the street after him, and proceeded to beat him senseless. Punchy crawled under a car, and Sully lifted the car up, dragged him out, and punched him so hard he actually knocked his ear off. That's option 2.
Those do
Option
not
3.
sound like Marcus of Queensberry rules.
Yeah. And the third option is body in the burial ground. In 1997, a tree branch fell in the Cops Hill burial ground after a storm, cracking open a tabletop tomb, revealing the remains of a person. Well, that may not seem strange in a tomb. It was, because the body, according to North Ender Terry Verzoni, who discovered it on a morning walk, was wearing a Mo Vaughn jersey. The body was later identified as Brian Grady of Revere, and his head was cracked open with a club or possibly a souvenir mini bat. The crime was never solved. So, which of these do you think is the lie? Is it number 1, going clubbing, number 2, Irish hello, or number 3, body in the burial ground?
I don't. I read a bit about Pitts because I think he was involved in the Tea Party, but I don't remember that story. It's possible I just never came across it. The Otis story is true. Is said to have hastened his madness, although probably that's not very medically sound. But the Pitts story, I just haven't heard it.
The story about Punchy and Sully. Those are stories I used to hear at family wakes, Irish wakes. So, sounds very, very familiar. I'm kind of skeptical about the Cops Hill story. It's an interesting place to put a body, I suppose. I agree with Ben about the Otis. Yes, that's quite true.
The Mo Vaughn detail is very specific. It's like how much work are the people at Revolutionary Spaces going through to make up these details, right? We got to try and aim this out.
But see, the Revere guy's body in Cops Hill, that sounds to me like a kind of typical Boston mob story, So I don't know.
I might go with 1.
Regarding the second story, if we're talking about 2 boxers, I was wondering why the first blow would have been had with an iron pipe as opposed to just duking it out with their fists.
Well, that's the usual thing you bring into an Irish pub in Boston in any case.
They use them as bathroom keys, right?
Right. You just never know.
Right.
I guess it depends on whether the boxer you want to attack is a better boxer than you. Really.
There you go. Right.
I'm going to go with 1, but I'm willing to follow you to 3.
I have faith, Ben. I have faith.
Yeah, and I'm with you in terms of the critical of the trend argument there.
Although that could be poetic license, seems to have started a trend. I get it. We all,
You're weakening, Ben. You're weakening. You're
weasel
weakening.
You're
weakening.
I'll still go with 1. All right, I'll stick to my guns on 1.
Okay. Those terms like seems like really are going to figure in here because I was a tour guide for many years, and I told the number 3 the story of the body in Cops Hill burial ground many times, but always starting with supposedly legend has it, or it's been said, that is the false one. And it is, so
Bill,
Oh.
big on with you.
yeah. If you ever take a tour and the tour guide says supposedly, enjoy the story, but don't believe it. Round 3 is monumental mistakes. All right. Option 1 is Fairweather Town. In 1774, a small community in central Massachusetts decided to name their new town after one of their favorite colonial residents, the beloved governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony, Thomas Hutchinson. The community remained Hutchinson, Massachusetts for a whopping 2.5 years, but by 1776, colonial America had canceled Thomas Hutchinson and exiled him forever to England, and the town renamed itself after a supporter of the American colonies instead. It's option 1. Option 2, White Power plaque. This is not about dentistry. Just outside of Rosendale Square on Washington Street, there stands a monument to the late Boston City Councilor Albert Dapper O'Neill. O'Neill, who served in World War II and as a Boston City Councilor for 25 years, was also an open supporter of a white nationalist group and thought racial integration was a communist plot against Boston. The monument was erected in 2009 and claims to have been erected by the people of Boston. And option 3, mean art. In front of 15 Easton Street in Lower Alston, lifelong resident Erin Harris builds a new monument every year to her neighbors. Specifically, she chooses the college student she finds most obnoxious throughout the school year and makes a life-sized model out of paper mache. She then lets it wither and rot on her front porch from June through August and then leaves the remains in front of the offender's house on Labor Day. So which option do you think it is? Option 1, Fairweather Town. Option 2, White Power plaque, or option 3, mean art?
Option 1 is true. So that one can't be the right answer. The O'Neill one, right? How racist do we think Boston is that story would be true? And then, number 3, I don't know, that one's wild.
Dapper O'Neill was a complete nutcase. Just a complete nutcase. Although he was very entertaining. You could go to city council meetings and listen to the Dapper, as he was called. He used to, by the way, before it was fashionable, he carried a gun into city council meetings. But in any case, erecting a monument to Dapper O'Neill seems really, if that's true, I'm going to run and hide.
Paper mache, TPing people's houses. Maybe it's possible.
That one could be like having the paper mache sculpture that you then allow to deteriorate as an art project and then leave the remains at the offender's house. That actually sounds plausible, right? I've been to Somerville Open Studios. Like, you see a lot of creativity in the Boston art scene. I kind of want that one to be true. I want the O'Neill one to be wrong. The people of Boston,
I would also want number 2 not to be true.
Yeah.
Bostonians take their history seriously, I tend to think. So somebody like that standing out would, I think, attract attention. I'm going to go with number 2.
I'll support you.
I
need another drink.
Yeah, you're going to need another drink for the answer, because number 2 is correct. It is in front of the Knights of Columbus in Rosendale. Number 3, which is the most positive one, is the one that is not true. Thank you so much for playing this game. I hope you had a fun time. I'm sorry, we did end on a little bit of a down note, so I apologize.
And we were only 1 for 3. We did terribly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys lost. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rob.
I feel bad. I didn't
really. You've really put Boston and historians in a good light, haven't you? 1 out of 3, and then the racist Dapper O'Neill. This is really okay. What are you going to do with this video? Huh?
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the games.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Have a great holiday, everyone. And thank you for arranging this. Take care.
Thanks. Same to you.
Great seeing everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Be good, all.